how you doing? I hope you're well. I'm Deanna and welcome to my channel. Today I'm coming at you with the long-awaited June and July wrap-up. I am hopeful that putting them together will just help streamline the process and get my wrap-ups on track. So without further ado, let's jump into the stats. We have a number of books to talk about. So we'll go first with our June stats. For June, I read a total of 14 books, 5,738 pages. My average star rating was 4.5 stars, which is excellent. I read 6 5 stars, 3 4.5 stars, and 5 4 stars. In terms of my other stats for genres, I had a pretty wide genre selection in June. So I had 4 fantasy romance, 2 omegaverse, 1 fantasy, 1 literary, 1 sci-fi, 1 romance, and 4 paranormal romance. In terms of formats, I read 4 ebooks, 3 ARCs, 6 audiobooks, and 1 paperback. And then last but not least, looking at our series versus standalone, unfortunately, we had a few more first books than sequels, but we will rectify that for the rest of the year, and we do in July. So we had 7 first books, 6 sequels, and 1 standalone. Jumping into the July stats, I've lost it. I read 17 books across 7,665 pages. My average star rating again was 4.5. We had 2 5 stars, 12 4.5 stars, and 3 4 stars. So that is a lot of books. So we'll try and get through these as rapid fire as possible. Also, there are a few series in here, so I'm just going to group them together. So without further ado, let's get into the books, and we'll see if I can make this as succinct as possible. I'm trying to, it's a public holiday here in Melbourne, so trying to get through as many videos as possible, so I just have them sitting there to edit. So first book I read in June, which I read on the way while I was up in Babe, was Viciously Yours by Jamie Applegate Hunter. And this is the first book in her Fae Kings of Eden, and I am so excited to continue on with this series. This has like a pen pal trope, fated mates, and also has like a chaotic golden retriever psychopath hero, which is something I've discovered I love in like the last 18 months. We're following Rennick, who is the royal fae of the Mountain Kingdom. So there's 4 kingdoms, and in this world, around your like 13th, 14th birthday, you hear the name of your fated mate. So he hears Amelia, and then his dad, goes around the Mountain Kingdom, and then reaches, when he can't find her, reaches out to the other kingdoms to try and find her, because the whole premise is that mates are sacred. The fae, like with most fae romances, they don't have the ability to have a lot of kids, so finding them and keeping them safe is important, especially when it comes to the Prince of the Mountain King. And also an interesting fact is it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to like have a wonderful romance with this person. Obviously that's something you would hope to happen, but it means that there's like a magical alliance and strong bloodlines which will result in offspring. Another important fact is that Renrick's mother was attacked and murdered by a rogue group of people. They don't really know who it is, so he also has this kind of fear of what's going to happen to lose her, and that's why the dad as well is also like, let's find her and bring her back to safety. However, they've scoured all the Feylands. They actually find out that Amelia is a human girl who is in an orphanage. Renrick can't leave the Mountain Kingdom until he comes of power when he's like 25, and they don't want to bring Amelia into the Fey realm because it's going to have a massive target on her back. Humans are weaker. It's better for her that way. This causes a number of problems. Obviously, he can't, go and find out who she is, and she's human, so she has no idea about Fey customs and culture. He does leave her notes, because I think it was either his dad or his best friend was like, well, you know, you might not be able to talk to her, but maybe you could like leave her notes. And, you know, it starts when he's like 13 being like, I don't really want to be with you, but I'm interested by you. And he ropes in his best friend. He's got two best friends, a guy and a girl. And then she is giving him ideas for gifts, which are just horrible. So this poor girl is sitting in this orphanage getting these notes by this kind of like grumpy, pissed off 13-year-old with all these like horrible gifts, and she thinks it's kind of like this worst nightmare. Yeah, she cannot keep the letters because they don't, again, want to put a target on her back, and she doesn't get a chance to respond. So Renwick has his friend like filter the letters across. So she's kind of like, I don't know what's going on, like, is this the guy? And kind of develops feelings for the best friend. This goes backwards and forwards for about 12 years, and then the letters stop once Renwick has more power into the kingdom and is tasked with military, so the letters come less frequently until they stop. And then Amelia's like, oh, I'm not going to hang around and like see what's going to happen. So she tries dating and everything like that, and then the minute he's able to, he crosses the walls, the borders to come find her. And it is so whimsical, it's hilarious at times. I loved this kind of misperception of each other, and there was a really big reveal in the end of this about who Amelia is. And yeah, they instantly have this like aggression, protectiveness towards each other. Even Amelia feels it. She doesn't like how close his best friend, the girl, is, and gets the vibe instantly that she's been trying to sabotage them because she's interested in him. And she goes a little feral once she finds the girl had like touched Renwick's shoulder, and then he was like, I'm put to stop to this. And then for whatever reason, to, you know, prove to her that he doesn't care about them, he gets a knife and like starts slicing off the skin the girl his friend touched. And then Amelia's like, oh my god, what the hell is going on? That's gross. But also like, why is that kind of hot? And yeah, it was a wild ride. I'm excited we learn a little bit more about one of the other kingdoms. I think it was the Sand Kingdom. And I think the 3 of the 4 books are out now, so very excited to continue on. It was just a really interesting concept for Fated Mates. I love the pen pal element, and excited to read more from Jamie Applegate Hunter. Next, I got an arc of Game Over, and I'm really behind in my reviews, so it is going to be a priority for the next couple of weeks to wrap them up. But this was by Bex Daveru and E.L. Elridge. This is the first book in their Naughty Gamer Omegaverse series, and this was a lot of fun. This is an MMF Omegaverse, and we're following a couple of streamers. It was hot as hell, like the spice do be spicing. In particular, our Tara is our female main character, and she's the Omega. She is a game streamer, but she also does, I guess it's like an OnlyFans subscription as well, and that's how she makes her money. And then she has a relationship with Jesse, who is a beta, and he's also a really big Twitch streamer. I don't think it's called Twitch, but you get the vibe. Jesse's non-binary, so we do have a lot of interesting like sexual diversity in here, which I really did enjoy. And his best friend Charlie comes to town, who is an alpha, but he's not your typical like alpha male who's like over the top macho. He is quite shy and he's quite considerate. He gives more like golden retriever vibes. He actually wouldn't mind being dominated, which is something that aligns well with Tara, who doesn't think Omega should be submissive. We find out that there is a novella that comes before this that Charlie actually spent the night with Tara during her first heat at a heat clinic, but he was a bit confused about who he's supposed to be as an alpha, and his business partner, he owns like this tech company, was all like, yeah, you just got to go in and be like, I'm the man, do this stuff. So she's a little confused about his personality now. There also has this other element of one of Tara's #1 subscribers or patrons through her OnlyFans type channel that is a FinDom and like financial dom, and is interested in being belittled and things like that. So there was a lot of miscommunication in this, but it all kind of made sense because Tara's unsure about her feelings towards Charlie because she's not who she thought he was based on their night at the clinic, and she actually did leave her details with him in hopes that, you know, he would contact her, but he never did because he was all feeling overwhelmed and didn't know what to do because that's the image he presented isn't who he is. And then Jesse's feeling a little unsure, I guess a little insecure, to be honest, because he's a beta and he knows that as an omega, Tara would need an alpha, despite her saying that she doesn't, and she's very happy with him in their relationship. But Charlie just adds this extra layer of complexity. Jesse also has feelings for Charlie, and then, you know, we find out that Charlie has feelings for both of them. And I think I just enjoyed, I mean, there was miscommunication, but it all made sense for the characters, and then trying to unpack their getting steadily messy dynamic. I also really loved the insight into what it looks like to be a full-time creator from both Jesse and Tara, you know, and also Tara does sex work and it's shown quite positively, as it should be. I don't think there's anything wrong with people who have chosen to do that line of work. Obviously a bigger conversation about people who are coerced, so that's the only thing they can get into, but I really did enjoy the look into their work and everything like that. And I really did enjoy how they came together, how they, while it was quite scary, took the time to open up and talk about their feelings and insecurities, and setting boundaries in place to ensure that everyone gets what they need out of the relationship and from everyone. There was one steamy scene in particular that was very hot. It was Jesse was on his regular gaming stream and he has very strict guidelines in terms of what happens with his sponsors, and Tara was under the table doing her own stream, and the idea was to see if, you know, anyone would be able to tell that Jesse was being not safe for work. I'll leave it at that, but really did enjoy this. Enjoyed the way that Bex and Ellie were able to kind of subvert what we think of as normal gender norms in omegaverse, you know, the hyper masculine alpha, the uber feminine and submissive omega, and then our beta is non-binary as well. So I think that this was just a lot of fun, beautifully done, as I said, and would be very interested to continue on with the series. I'm not sure how many books are out there, but everyone got their happily ever after and everyone was loving everyone, which is something I always thoroughly enjoy. Next, I picked up A Fate Inked in Blood by Danielle L. Jensen. This is the first Danielle L. Jensen I've read and I really enjoyed it. It is a fantasy romance which features Norse mythology, which is something I'm always interested in Norse mythology, and I haven't read too much about it. So in this, we are following Freya, who has a secret. She has a drop of the goddess Freya's blood, which means that she's able to repel any attack. She has been sold off to marriage in her little community to whichever high lord. She's pretty miserable about it because he treats her like crap, and she wants to be able to fight, but this guy's like super traditional and women will be in the kitchen, yada yada. I mean, she's unhappy in this marriage and she wants it to end, but she gets that a little bit sooner than she thinks when the Jarl rocks up as he's heard a prophecy that there's a shield maiden, so they test Freya by putting her in a fight to a death with his son Björn, and once it's revealed that she is the shield maiden, he kind of goes, yoink, you're mine now. So he dissolves the marriage with the asshole guy, her husband, and then he marries her because the prophecy is that whoever owns the shield maiden will unite the lands of these tribes. So he binds Freya into a blood oath on threat of, you know, harming and maiming her family, and he assigns Björn, his son, to protect her and train her on how to fight. Really interesting in terms of like the world building. It did feel very reminiscent, or it did feel like very authentic in terms of like a Norse or a Viking dark Iron Age setting. Obviously we had the magic being that those who were god-kissed do have actual magic abilities, and the relationship that develops between Björn and Freya is quite good. I do enjoy it. Björn himself is the eldest son of this Jarl, but he's not he's a bastard, I'm pretty sure. So there's some animosity between him and his stepmom. He was taken prisoner by who I can only assume is this world's equivalent of the Saxons, and he has only recently been released because he is also God-kissed or God-touched, and he's trying to prove himself. The ending of this one was wild, and I have been dying to pick up the second one, but I'm also a little bit hesitant because I haven't heard the best reviews of the sequel. But I think if I keep my expectations low, I should still probably enjoy it. I think the biggest feedback was the romance, which was promised in here, doesn't really go anywhere in the second one, but I also have been thoroughly enjoying the world build, learning about the culture and the politics, that hopefully it should be okay. I devoured this and I need more Norse-based fantasy romance. I then picked up Emily Wilde's Map of the Otherlands by Heather Fawcett, and I am fully obsessed with this series. It is just so charming and cozy, and I am endlessly in love with Emily and Wendell's dynamic. So this is the second book in this series, and we're following Emily Wilde, who is a scholar of fairy folklore. This is set in like an alternate world where the fae are real. So I can't remember the actual name of the study, but she has released her encyclopedia, which was mentioned in the first one, and is now working on her newest academic project, which is to find a map of the other lands. And this in particular will help Wendell, who is looking for a door into one of the Irish fae realms. And yeah, this is told in an epistolary form, so it is written as if this is Emily's journal as she's going through this expedition, and we get lots of footnotes. Her character is very autism coded. She's quite academic, to the point, not really interested in human interactions. And then we've got Wendell, who is the biggest dramatic cinnamon roll. He gives me very much like Hal from Howl's Moving Castle vibes in terms of how dramatic he is, and he is like a rival professor, but we kind of realize that less of a rival, and he's always had a thing for Emily. So I'm enjoying watching their dynamic get created and learning more about the fae and how this interacts with our world. She ends up, running into different fae than she has before, making some unlikely friends, and it was just utterly charming, and definitely going to be a series that I will pick up and reread whenever I need a warm hug, I guess. Whenever I need a warm hug. Next up, I read Sea of Tranquility by Emily St. John Mandel. Very much not my norm, but I have loved Emily St. John Mandel since reading Station 11. There's something about her literary sci-fi that I really enjoy. And this one deals with parallel worlds and different timelines, and her writing is absolutely stunning. So we are following one timeline in 1912 where 18-year-old Edward crosses the Atlantic. He's been isolated or exiled from polite English society, and in British Columbia he enters a forest spellbound by the beauty of the Canadian wilderness, and for a split second the darkness opens up and notes of a violin echo through the air, and the experience shock him through his core. And this moment of in the forest with the violin is that really pivotal point and thread that brings each of the timelines together. We have a writer who is going around centuries later where she's recently, her family live on the moon colonies, and she is touring Earth for a book tour. Within the text of her novel lies a strange passage where a man plays a violin for change, and in the echoing corridors of an airship as trees of the forest rise around him. So that kind of juxtaposition of the nature versus sci-fi is really what's in here. And this has we're then also following a detective from the Black Sky Night City who's been hired to investigate an anomaly in time. And he's kind of the main character, I guess. And it was just one of those books where, you just kind of go in for the ride. It's beautifully written, broken down into parts. Once we find out what happens, it was just completely wonderful. The writing is she's got one of those beautiful lyrical writing styles where I could have just highlighted like every other passage. So I'm very glad to have read another one of Emily St. John Mandel's books. I think I've still got The Glass Hotel and maybe one more. She's an author that I love to read, but I love the idea of knowing that there's a book of hers on my shelf to read whenever I'm in the mood for her particular brand of sci-fi. I'm not normally a big sci-fi fan, but I think the way she does it is beautiful, and it deals more with like parallel worlds and timelines, multiverses, that kind of thing. So wasn't super heavy on the space, which I enjoyed. I did finish up this Silvercrest Academy by Casey Keene in July. I read 2 books, Destined Shadows and Cursed Shadows, and then reading Unchained Shadows in July. So I'm just going to talk about them all together. I did really enjoy this paranormal Why Choose romance. This one is following Raven, who his mother takes her to away from her father, who's quite high up in this society in, I think he's either a general in the military or a politician, something of that effect. But she takes her daughter and goes to like Shadowmoor, which is the slums of this earth. No one here really has a magical ability. It's kind of like a witchy vibe to this magic system. They're surviving barely, and then her dad then rocks up one day when she's like, they've been there for about 10 years or so. She's in her late teens and says, come on, you're off to Silvercrest Academy. And Silvercrest Academy is the kind of elite, think Ivy League school, where the people with exceptional abilities go and the most influenced people go to learn their magic. The tuition and everything's free, but you then get to pay back your education. You will then serve the community, whether in the military or something of that effect, to kind of pay back your service. And Raven's kind of like, I don't have any magical abilities, why am I going? And her name seems to indicate that they're not sure if she's a boy or a girl, so she ends up in a dorm with 4 guys. Let me get their names. Creed, Zane, Aldon, and Brax, who are the bishops, so they're the most popular guys in their particular year level, very powerful, each own a different sect of magic. And in this world, I guess, Why Choose or polyamory relationships are very popular, so they choose Raven and it goes from there. There is, as we go on, we find out more about Raven and what her ability is and why it hasn't unfolded before, and the reasons why her mother took her and ran. She's finding out that maybe her father isn't the enemy that she thinks he is, and he was kind of playing the powers to be, playing a part to ensure the protection of his family. Same with her older brother Sebastian. He is an absolute asshole, and she's really struggling with the fact that she can't really trust anybody. The relationship develops quite nicely between the guys. It doesn't have that kind of bully relationship, which is kind of common in some of these academic paranormal romance series. It goes from quite like a friends to lovers situation. And yeah, the plot was interesting. Politics, what was going on in the world, how they were going to stop it or solve it, while also trying to figure out what's going on, because they're really on the back foot. It was entertaining. The books left on a cliffhanger, which is why I binge read book 2 and 3 back to back, and then very quickly after picked up book 4 because I needed to know what was happening. I really do enjoy Casey Keene's writing. Probably not my favorite of her series. I think I definitely enjoyed her Saints Academy better, but that's because it had a Greek myth twist. But if you're in the mood for a paranormal Why Choose romance with an academy setting, I would recommend Silvercrest Academy. It was really fun. Then I picked up my other sci-fi for the year, which I know, who is she? And I picked up Tenebrum, I think that's how you say it, by Eleanor Miller. And this is like a dystopian noir thriller set in the future where the Prohibition era has flipped back around again. So it was really interesting to see these kind of 1920s kind of like detectives and crime, but we're also having like floating cars. And the big thing is that there's this new drug that everyone is interested in. However, it is highly addictive and will, if you take it enough, which is, I think you only have to take it like a handful of times, you will end up basically a zombie and wanting to eat people's flesh. So I'm pretty sure it's a zombie, not a vampire, but that's the kind of thing that's happening. So in this world that they've rounded up all these people and are putting them into the underground, there is also a quite sinister and like uber capitalist society. And I guess the mafia underground is this society that has infiltrated like a big pharma company, government agencies, the police force. It's all very corruption across the board, because they are trying to find a way to use this drug to control people. And we're following these three detectives as they're trying to figure out what's going on. They've been roped into a case. So Thea Williams and her mentor, Walt, they're trying to solve a string of horrific murders which prostitutes and sex workers have been murdered, but they're getting stopped at kind of every point. Like, don't look any further than this, like just take it as, someone got too rough, they're prostitutes, who gives a fuck, that kind of thing. They are also dealing with the consequences of their not so professional relationship. So I don't know why I thought this was like a romance, but I guess there is a romantic element. It's not necessarily the healthiest romance. Thea and Walt do have a sexual relationship. Walt was married, well, still is married, to a woman who works for one of the big pharma companies, but she has become victim to the drug and has been roped into that underground bunker where all the zombie vampires live. So Walt has kind of gone into like this whole drinking spiral, and his professionalism has gone down. Thea is trying to kind of keep her shit together and keep her career on the run. Her dad, keep her career going. And in this world, they've got a kind of 3 strikes and you're out system. Like, it doesn't matter what crime you've committed, whether it was like it's prohibition, right? So you're caught drinking, you've murdered someone, you've robbed someone, you do commit 3 crimes and you're executed. So very interesting plot where we've got this murder investigation happening, this very kind of toxic, messy dynamic between Thea and Walt, and they're trying to uncover this massive plot with like cults and dark underworld. And while I kind of was a bit taken aback by the cheating scenes that happened first up, and it was just my misinterpretation of what the book was going to be, and I thought it was going to be more romance forward, or at least have a healthier romance portrayed. Once I got my head around that it was my misinterpretation, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I've never read like a noir crime thriller, but I think it was just beautiful juxtaposition of that with this futuristic 1920s. As I said, they still dress the same. We've got the same like rulings of alcohol is illegal, but we've got things like they've got the eye scanner. So when police are on the force, there's, they've got AI technology in that kind of, and body modifications. I think one of the detectives gets injured and like gets himself a new arm, Bucky Barnes style. And it was just very interesting. I really enjoyed it and will be interested to read more of this world. I think I was really captivated from the get-go. It did have that kind of like corruption is everywhere, trying to fight the good fight. And yeah, I really thoroughly enjoyed this one and will be excited to continue on with the next book. We've won the battle, but the war is still going on vibes. And I think in the sequel, Thea goes to a different city. So it'll be interesting to see what happens and how things cross over. Then I picked up Archangel's Lineage by Nalini Singh. This is hold on, let me figure it out. This is like the 16th book in the Guild Hunter series, so I won't tell you too much about this. In this world, we're following Alina, who is a vampire hunter. Think you're Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And she has a kind of unique or an enhanced ability where she can track vampires and sense vampires, which makes her pretty excellent at her job. So she is a guild hunter, and in this world there's a really interesting take on vampires. So we have archangels, or angels in general, and they are the ones who create vampires. The guild hunters are there as kind of a policing force, that if a vampire, I guess in trade of being given the gift of vampirism, they have a 100-year contract where they have to work for their angel. It could be nice, they could be given a job. For example, Archangel Raphael, who is the Archangel of America, you know, he might get them to work in his organization, or they may be treated like slaves. I guess it depends on the angel, and there is this kind of brutal philosophy in terms of how the angels act. They definitely give me more of like the angels from Supernatural, in that they're not good people. They're quite violent and ruthless. You know, they're the top dog, so no one else is really gonna say anything. And then we have Raphael, as I said, is the Archangel of New York. The world is owned and controlled by like a group of archangels. There's anywhere from like 7 to 10, depending on who's ascended. And in the very first book, Angel's Blood, Elena is hired by Raphael to help hunt down what she thinks is a vampire, but is actually a angel who's gone into this very deadly bloodlust. Obviously, this is book 16, so lots has happened since then. Unlike her Psy Changeling world, we do come back to Elena and Raphael in books, so we do get to see the development of their relationship. And this is another book where we're back with the pair of them, who I just love and adore. We've had the big battle with the big evil from the first 10 to 12 books, and we're really sitting in that aftermath of how do they rebuild. The angel society is a bit all over the place. The vampires have starting to become restless and trying to test boundaries, and we've had more archangels awaken from sleep. So the power balance in the world is a bit topsy-turvy because there's more archangels than there really should be. I think there's like 12 or 13. They're trying to divide up territories to ensure that the archangels aren't kept in too close proximity, which would cause catastrophic consequences, for lack of a better word, and also to ensure that they have a iron grip on the vampires. I love this world. I love these characters. Nalini Singh can do no wrong in my eyes. We do have an interesting point where we have another angel arise from sleep. So angels can die, but a lot of the powerful ones will just, when the world gets too much, you know, these are beings who've lived for millennia. Like, it's an interesting take on, like, you know, people say they want to live forever, but there's just a lot of, can you just imagine the grief, the turmoil, the horrible things that they've seen that may not outweigh the good in some instances. So they get to a point where they want to go and sleep. So we've had some angels going back to sleep. Some of them are recovering from that big battle. And we do have a angel who arises, who is considered an ancient. So he is not really angel-like like we are used to, and he's older than even the oldest vampire on the cadre, who is that ruling coalition of angels. He is an ancestor for Raphael, and we get to meet this character and see his perspectives, and they're really just trying to make society and the world a better place. And yeah, I loved it. I love this so much. I also adore the US covers of these. I am going to meet Nalini Singh again, so I'm going to take all my Archangels books and the couple of Psy Changeling books I haven't got signed since I've last seen her, and I have one more to go. Actually, I've got a novella collection, and then I've got one more to go, and it's one of those series where I want to catch up, and it is one of my priority series of the year anyway. But the thought of having to wait for the next Archangel book is a little scary. So I definitely will continue on, and the next one goes back to Bluebell and Sparkles, and I'm very excited to come back into this world. It's like coming home. Sticking on the vampire theme, I then picked up The Vampire Castle in the Sky by Iris Lake, and this was so beautiful. This is part of her Far Away North series, and this one definitely still keeps that cozy romanticy vibe, but we are dealing with a lot of grief and darkness, which was just so beautifully done. It was another book like with Sea of Tranquility where I just wanted to highlight everything. It's definitely going to be a series that I'm dying for the next book. I hope we get more books and I will reread them. So we're following Thea, who we met in the first book, and she has spent her entire life following her plan, like following the path her other people have set for her, mainly her parents. She, growing up, was best friends with Hector, he's a boy who lives in the castle in the sky, and he is the son of the kind of first vampire queen. She was at the start and like the inception of their story is that she was running for her life. Vampires were considered to be abominations, and she finds the castle in the sky, and it offers her a sanctuary. This castle used to be a star and it's sentient, and I love that. Like, it's definitely like, if you want something, the castle will provide for you. And she was able to rally the vampires, put some laws in place about, you know, not eating people, not going wild and becoming a danger, so that the vampire hunters could see them as, you know, sentient beings, and they were able to kind of claim their place in the world. Thea stumbles across Hector and the castle in the sky when she's younger, and they have this beautiful friendship growing up. But when it seems to be that Hector is not interested in anymore and her parents are putting pressure on her marrying, she ends up going to far away north and the castle there to become a lady-in-waiting in hopes of getting a marriage alliance. So it is years since Hector and Thea have spoken. Thea has started to realize that she doesn't really want the life that her parents are shoving down her throat. She dissolves her engagement, and when she finds out that Hector's parents, who was the vampire queen, and her human mate have died, she travels back to the castle in the sky to, you know, pay her respects. These are also people that she loved and is sorrowful for, but she knows that Hector is quite reserved and is quite shy and not... So she's worried about him, that he doesn't have anyone to support him. Once she gets there, she realizes that Hector isn't the same little scared boy that she remembers, and that he is quite lethal and dangerous. And while they're there, they end up roped into this like fake marriage alliance because she wants to be there to support Hector, but the vampires, like the head vampires in this society, are rocking up, and she can't be privy to, she shouldn't be there, but she refuses to leave because she wants to help support him and go through her own grief. But if she won't be able to be there because they're going to talk vampire shop, you know, they're going to talk, is he going to take over the mantle of the throne? What's going to happen in the aftermath of this? And we end up getting a look into this vampire society. The heads of the vampire sections are quite different. Some of them more dark and deranged and barely leashed than the others. And while they're trapped in the castle itself is also going through grief. But while they're there, people start dying off and they've got to figure out who's responsible. And basically it's just this, very whimsical fairy tale vibe, which Iris Lake had in the first book, but we do have this like undercurrent of grief. You know, what do you do in the aftermath of losing someone who's so important to you? And it was just beautiful. I was completely captivated. I was giggling one moment, in tears the next, and definitely if you're in the mood for very whimsical lyrical writing with a very beautiful story, it is very character focused on Thea and Hector, but we do have some kind of like big world stuff happening in the background. I highly recommend everyone read it, because Iris Lake is just a master at this kind of cozy fantasy. Next, I picked up The Season by Alicia Kemp, and this is the first contemporary book that I've picked up by her. I previously read her time travel Bronze Age romance, which was fantastic. And this one is the first book in her Endless Winter series, and we're following a group of people who are in Ohio for the snow season, and they are working at the local snow run. I don't know what it's called. Can you tell? And our female main character, Lily, is from Hawaii. She has finished college, or she's taking a gap year or a leave of absence from her studies. Her life is kind of up in the air. The guy she thought, you know, she loved and would marry has been cheating on her non-stop, and she's just decided to escape to the snowfields and escape her problems. Sorry, it's Utah, not Ohio. And she is fighting for a competitive position to be a snowboard instructor, so that if she gets that, she'll be able to, you know, work on the mountain and get paid for the year. And this is going to be the perfect distraction from her shit show of a life. Her parents are pushing her to go into law, I'm pretty sure, which is something that she's not interested in. She actually really loves snowboarding and would love to be a full-time snowboard instructor, but her parents are like, no, you come from a line of lawyers, so you're going to do it. So she just wants to completely escape and not be distracted. And it's perfect until it's not. And she ends up in a condo with 6 guys. There is this beautifully funny moment at the start of the book where I think there's like 3 of them already living there, and they have an extra bed. And given that it's snow season in Utah, rent is quite expensive for short-term lease, so they're needing another person to fill in. And all 3 of them go, I found someone. And so instead of having 1 extra person, they end up with 3 extra people, and Lily is one of them. And what she is kind of like, okay, this isn't what I expected to be. I'm just gonna focus on getting my beating this task, becoming a snowboard instructor for the season, and not get distracted by any relationship, familiar, like French, platonic or romantic. However, she doesn't expect to lose her heart to the guys. We've got Maddie, Liam, Eddie, Antoine, and Seth. And they basically have nothing in common except for the fact that they all are in Utah for the snow season, and they are all trying to escape something. And yeah, there is some interesting dynamics. Maddie is just come out of the military. He kind of was pushed there because he had what he thought was no other prospects. He's not the smartest. He comes from a poor family. He wasn't going to go to uni, so at least by going into the military, he was going to be guaranteed like housing, healthcare, all that stuff, which is super important. He's since, you know, finished his service and is dealing with some trauma in relation to what he's seen over there. I think it's Liam is an ex-professional snowboarder, and he has stopped because he had a really terrible injury. I think it was he broke a leg or something. So a terrible injury which has halted his Olympic career. So he is frustrated at that. He still loves snowboarding, so still will teach. And he's one of the guys, like with Eddie, who will just roam the world. So they'll be in America and Canada, for even Japan, for France, Europe for, you know, the winter months, and then they will flip around to New Zealand for, you know, they're constantly chasing winter to ensure that they're working. Then there's Antoine, who is a Frenchman. He's a skier, not a snowboarder. And he has had a romantic moment with Liam, but they've got this. Antoine thinks that Liam's unhappy with it because he was dealing with his own like sexual feelings, but realistically Antoine was underage and Liam wasn't freaking out by the fact that Antoine was a guy, but more the fact that Antoine was a minor. So it is a bit messy. I do love the way that they all come together as a family. There is one guy who lives in the condo who is a piece of shit, and I'm so glad they deal with him. But I just loved watching these group of people who are really struggling with what they want out of life and who they want to be kind of come together. And I have pre-ordered my special edition, well, my Luxe hardback editions from Alicia Kemp, which I'll pick up at Rare, and I'm excited to dive into the next one because I love these characters. It definitely gives like a bit of a slice of life vibe to it. Like the plot's not huge. They're just working at the snowfield and then kind of figuring out their dynamic, and they've all very quickly realized that they're interested in Lily. And I think it's Seth he is non-binary, but it's either I'm pretty sure non-binary, but also pansexual. And he's always had this idea of being in a poly relationship where everyone supports everyone and everyone's able to get what they need out of the relationship. You know, sometimes you can't get everything out of one person, and to expect to get for one person to be your whole everything is quite daunting. So he's always had this idea of having a poly dynamic, and he kind of floats it to the guys, and they're all slowly being like, okay, yes, I am interested in Lily, so if that works. And then you've got Liam and Antoine also figuring out their side of things, and yeah, I'm excited to dive back into these characters and see how their dynamic plays out. Then I picked up A Spark of Sorcery by Hannah Hayes. Very thankfully given an arc of this one, which I am loving Hannah Hayes this year. She must be one of my favorite authors I've discovered in 2025, and this is the second book in her Firestone Academy series. So I won't go too much into it, but just know that I completely loved it. We really pick up where the first one left off, and we're following Bryony as she's been sent to this academy. This world is split into like 4 realms. We've got the Onyx realm, where the Shadow Wielders, who are the magic people and the top pinnacle of society, are. There is the Iron realm, which is where the athletes and the military come from. The Granite realm, which is where your healers and your academics come from. And then the Slate realm, which is where your manual labor comes from, for lack of a better term. So Bryony is from the Slate Quarter and has really kind of given up on the fact there is this message that's puts out that if you do really good at the academy, you could lift yourself from your current realm. But she kind of knows that's bullshit, and after her sister died years ago when she entered the academy, she really has this understanding that no one really gives a crap about the people from the Slate Quarter, and she just wants to find out what happened to her sister because she doesn't believe her death was an accident. And her whole plan is to keep her head down, survive when the princes, who are the top shadow wielders of this year level, decide to pick her as their thrall. As a gift for coming first in the first trial, they are given a thrall who they can have mostly for sexual things rather than like cooking and cleaning and that kind of stuff. And Bryony wants nothing to do with it. And they're all the 3 of them are very intrigued by the fact that she's not interested, but that just makes them want her even more. So it was interesting to see how their relationship develops. And then we have a Professor Fox who teaches one of the classes, and he is the kind of golden boy of the Slate realm because he was from Slate but found out that he had shadow wielding powers, so was able to lift himself out of poverty. But we kind of see that there is more to that, and it's definitely not something you would wish upon your enemy and what he had to do to get there. So this is really building up. We definitely get the vibe that the government and what they're saying and their messaging isn't actually true. So I do luckily have the 3rd book. I've just been given an arc for that, so I'm very much excited to be back with Bryony and the boys very quickly. And then I picked up Heavenly Bodies by Amani Aru, and I really loved this. Like, I thought I was going to like it, but I definitely enjoyed it a lot more than I thought. We have a world which is based on a celestial pantheon, which I think is really cool. And there is some seemingly Greek mythos looped in, but I think that's just mainly due to like the naming convention and things like that. Following Alara, in this world the gods are called stars and they're considered to be cruel and merciless, and Alara has been cursed by fate. There's a prophecy that says she will fall for a star and it will kill them both. So Alara is trying to escape that fate. She is the princess of, I'm pretty sure she's the princess of the Night Kingdom, which has been, with the outcry of that prophecy from memory, there has been some financial backlash and they aren't doing very well. So she finds an opportunity to take herself from the kingdom when the Star of Wrath and War descends on the hunt for her. So she pops over to Helios, the Kingdom of Light, where she strides right into the arms of an enemy prince, and she is forced to either let this prince, Lorenzo, train her into the weapon that will battle this raging star, or to accept her fate, to go with the star and fall in love. And I just wasn't expecting to love this one as much. The world is really complicated. I really enjoy the magic system and the gods and the celestial vibe to it all. I am very much looking forward to the sequel. The way this ended was wild to me. You get the vibe as we go through that Alara does have a very warped perception of the gods given her prophecy, and she's scared to come up or agree with any, or deal with any of the stars or the gods. and I am just very much excited to dive into the sequel. I did listen to this one on audio, which was fantastic. The romance does develop quite nicely between Lorenzo and Alara. Both are keeping things to themselves and things close to the chest, which will hurt them in the long run. But yeah, this was so much fun. It makes me realize I really do need to get to the rest of my romantasy books just to do a try chapter probably to see which ones are on my radar, but this one is definitely worth the hype. It was a lot of fun. All right, now we're moving on to our July books. And I started the month by reading Forget Me Twice by E.J. Campbell, and oh my god, I love this. She does dark romance with some seriously hot spice like no other, and I was eating this up. I still can't believe I haven't picked up the sequel because I am dying to get to it. She also does a morally grey female character who is just as dark and deranged, for lack of a better word, as the guys. So in this we're following Sabine. She has no memory of who she was until 5 years ago. Sebastian Grayson, the mayor of this town, but also the head of their underworld called the Grey Man, recruits her into his organization. She's a bit of a loose cannon because of this head injury and her lack of memories. She has low impulse control, and to get some kind of like euphoria, she lives on the edge. She's has heavy reliance on drug use and alcohol, and will make dangerous decisions while working to kind of get the thrill of life. So she's kind of fucked up a few jobs along the way, and her kind of last ditch effort to survive and keep her and her crew together is that she is going to be sent to this academy. I think they're in senior year of high school, and she needs to recruit as many people as possible to their organization because they're looking to expand into Roxborough. This could be teachers, staff, students, it doesn't matter. She just has to meet that criteria and that capacity. One of her big things is she needs to sign up the Rox Boys, who are the head, I guess, crew or gang of the university, of this school. One of the other local gangs have been sniffing around for them, but that's her big target. Get as many people, but also get these boys. She's now in senior school it's apparently her hometown, and she's trying to get the Rox Boys and meet her target. She is fascinating. She is totally unhinged and out of control. I love the fact that her crew have been sent with her to help her out, who includes Jax, who is the Grey Man's son. So he's trying to do what he can to make sure his crew is doing what they can to follow orders and lifting their weight while also not bringing up too much controversy in terms of his power, in case, the Grey Man is nothing but a petty bitch and will cut a bitch if there is any whisper of a coup. She also has Knox and Foster, and they have also been, with her assignment to go to Roxbury, have been sent there to be her eyes and ears and help give her information. And then we have the Rox Boys, who is Tristan, Callum, Lake, and Atlas. And there is definitely something you can see that Sabine does have a past relationship with the Rox Boys. They instantly hate her on sight and don't seem to believe her amnesia, but are drawn to her. There is a massive cliffhanger reveal at the end, and I was like, what? And we get the vibe that they are going to kind of combine to be their own. And the series is called The Pantheon because Sabine has renamed them, given them all code names, I guess, to be the Greek gods. It was dark, it was messy, it was unhinged at times, and I'm loving it, and cannot wait to pick up book 2. Then I read Wolves and Whipped Cream at Hallows Cove by Ash Raven, and this is the next book in this small town cozy monster romance series, and this is the first MMF romance we've got. So we are following Clay and Mitch. They are a pack of wolven, so they live in their kind of wolfy form, and they have been a couple since high school. They run the bakery in town and they're pretty content with their life, but they are starting to feel that there is something missing. So normally wolven packs have an alpha, a beta, and an omega. It was interesting because Clay was a football athlete in high school and has since, I guess, let himself go a little bit. You know, he's not as active as he was. He's also older, so it's harder to maintain your weight at that age. And he's a baker, so he's eating lots of sweet treats. So he's put on a little bit of weight and he's feeling a little self-conscious about his body. He's also very set in his routine and doesn't necessarily like outside of people. So he definitely feels like he has enough in Mitch, who is this bright golden retriever, pun intended, type character. But when Rowan arrives to the town, she's taken up an artist residence and is basically fleeing her life. Her parents are quite well off in London society. She thought she had been, you know, rebelling and clawing her authority back from her parents by getting into art and having her own studio. But once she finds out that her parents have been secretly funding this, and now that her brother has gone into a public disaster, PR disaster, they want her to give up her dreams and follow suit. I believe they're of like minor nobility in England, so her dad's a lord or something. So she is horrified that this fuck you to her family has been secretly funded by her family, that she just decides to get this artist residency. She doesn't care that it's got limited money. There is accommodation built in and she's going to do her best for Hollows Cove to revive the arts centre and make that a program. So pretty much when Rowan arrives, Mitch is instantly captivated by her, and so is Clay. And Rowan, she's very interested in them too, but once she finds out they're a couple, she backs off. So they do their best to woo her and help her realize that in Wolven society, thruples are all the rage. And I loved it. It was really fantastic to see Ronan kind of go through her trauma with her parents and recognizing the privilege and trying to work through that, and also figure out that, you know, she isn't reliant, or the fact that her parents have given her money doesn't necessarily owe them, doesn't necessarily mean that she needs to do whatever she wants to them. So I loved that she was able to step up to her family and make a stance and make that clean break. And as I mentioned, Clay himself is feeling a little self-conscious about his body, and I just love the way that both Rowan and Mitch are constantly praising him and telling him how much they love him and the way he looks to help his insecurities. And yeah, it was just super sweet, super spicy. I'm in awe of these authors in this series, that we're getting books under 200 pages, but they're packing in a lot of relationship development and characterization, and this one might be one of my favorites. I am a sucker for a wolf and I'm a sucker for an MMF, so this one was just done brilliantly. You can read them out of order. I would recommend reading them in order because you kind of get introduced to the characters as we go along. There's not like an overflowing through line, but they are perfect if you want to, you know, read all things paranormal for October, but not necessarily wanting something that is dark and graphic and horror. This would be perfect if you need that kind of cozy breakup. Would highly recommend. Then I picked up Stranded by Shona Knight. This is the first book in her Desert Island duet. I really just need to finish this duet now that the second one's out. And this is a, I guess, gender swap Tarzan retelling Why Choose, which was so much fun. We are following Z, or Darla, her full name, who has been stranded alone on this island for the past 15 years. And she has been doing everything she can to survive. Her dad was there with her for like the first couple of months and they built their own shelter, and she's really just been on survival mode of like, need to get food, need to refurnish, or she's learning skills to create, you know, utensils and things like that. And she is hilarious. I think you have to be. She's got such a strong mental psyche and just a strong resilience to her. Like, she talks to herself. She has a rock that she is friends with. There's a lemur named Momo who she talks to all the time, and her constant internal monologue is hilarious. And I think if she didn't have that, she would go insane, and I love her for that. So she's just full on survival mode. She has really no desire to leave the island because in those first few months that she was there, men entered the island and ended in deadly consequences. So she's really terrified of the outside world, understandably so. So it's been 15 years, and when 3 strangers crash land on the island, she is terrified that they are going to do what the other guys who were there 15 years ago did. So she kind of observes them from the trees, but also will leave them food because she knows how hard it is to survive, and will set up situations to see if they will react in anger or not, to see if she can trust them. And she finally reveals herself when they're about to get killed by a boar, and they instantly go into like uber protective mode, which pisses Z off. At one stage I think she's kind of like, oh, this is kind of nice, but when it starts to seem like they're belittling her or they're saying she can't do stuff that she's done by herself for 15 years, she gets really, really shitty. So the guys we have, Bauer and Kingsley are the 2 best friends who own the tech company, and their friend Reese, who is terrified of flying and is back home, sent them there to follow up a lead. And then you have Weston, who is the pilot. So Weston, Bauer and Kingsley are stuck on the island with Darla, and Reese is at home trying to find them. The guys are all interested in Darla. They want to protect her and yada yada. The more they find out about her and her life, they want to be able to get her off the island and be able to provide her things and experiences that she's never had. And Darla is a bit overwhelmed because she doesn't want them to make her choose. So the guys are kind of like, we like each other enough, why not? We're kind of sitting there figuring out like what happened. Why are they all on the island? Each of the guys all thinks that they're the reason why they're there. It doesn't really explain why Darla was there and who's after them. And we have some very interesting reveals, and it ends on a massive cliffhanger. And if the title of the sequel, Hunted, is anything to go by, we have some questions we need answering. But I did really enjoy this. I love Shona Knight's writing style. This is definitely less dark than her Shattered Silence duet. There is a humor and a levity to it, but we're still stranded on a desert island and people are hunting us. So highly recommend if you're in the mood for a dark white choose romance. Next I picked up Not Her Catch by Ari Wright. This is the 5th book in her sports romance omegaverse. I haven't read any of the others, but I definitely will go back. But it's one of those interconnected standalones where you don't necessarily need to read previous books in order to understand what's going on. This is a much awaited book in this series as we're following Bridget, who is our plus size omega. I recently discovered Ari Wright after I picked up Once Upon a Pack and absolutely loved her writing style and her brand of omegaverse. So I jumped on the opportunity to get an arc for this one and loved it. I did not know I needed fake engagement omegaverse as much as I did after reading this one. So as I mentioned, we're following Bridget, who's plus size omega. She's already, I guess, subverting omega standards by not being thin and feminine, quote unquote. You can be plus size and feminine. I'm plus size, feminine, whatever. You can be whatever you want to be. And she has quite a acidic scent, which is again not something that people associate with omegas. So she has a lemon scent, but instead of it smelling like a meringue pie, it smells more like dishwashing liquid. Like it's quite erosive and offensive that her family are constantly belittling her mum and her alpha sister in particular. And she is stuck living with her alpha sister and she's a teacher. So again, she's from a high up family and has decided to pursue a career that's, very noble, but doesn't have the money or the high powered job that it should have, being that she's trying to teach a generation. I think she's a teacher librarian. So she's constantly been, she doesn't have the right job. She doesn't smell right. She doesn't look right. She's worthless, basically, is what her family says. And she's trying to save up to get her own place. And she needs it to happen fast because her sister's husband, who is an alpha, is starting to make really gross, unwanted advances towards them. And when her sister's friend from high school, Jessie, who's now a pro baseballer, offers to court Bridget, she jumps at the chance. So basically Jessie and Darius and Colt have become a pack after they've all joined this baseball league. They have very much, Jessie is the pitcher and he's very focused in what he wants to do, but both Darius and Colt have come from, I guess, low socioeconomic backgrounds and are very much loving and living up the, you know, sex, drugs and rock and roll kind of vibe that comes with such a high-powered, high-paying job. So their baseball company has basically said, pull your heads in, fix your image, or you're being cut from next season. So Jesse's the leader of this pack and is like, shit, we've got to get a mate. So he approaches Bridget because they went to high school together. He's always kind of had a thing for her. What happens in this meeting is it's a very tense meeting, I guess. It's a meeting where the guys did have good intentions to court her officially, but Bridget wants to get out there, and she has this such self-stigmatization and self-belief that no one would want her and that she's not worthy, that she thinks they're just there for a deal. So she's like, yep, I'll be fake engaged to you. I'll help clean your image. You need to get me a house and get me out of here. So the guys are instantly taken back, like, fuck, she doesn't want us, and they get quite offended by the fact that she's not interested in them like that. At the start of the book, things have still gone to shit. Colt ends up on a drinking binge and in a accident, so his career may be on the line, and their management is still like, even though you're engaged, you're never seen with her, and it leaks to the media that their engagement is fake. So now poor Bridget is dealing with that on top of everything else. And high school kids are mean. Adrian is the new general manager of the baseball club, as a baseball club. Is it a team? I don't know. Sports. Can you tell I don't watch them? And he approaches Jesse and Colt and Darius and wants to join their pack. And he wants to join their pack because he is besotted with Bridget. The guys agree. Jesse is floundering at being the leader. He can't keep the pack together and is struggling with his own anxieties and stresses of, you know, being good at his sport. Like, that's what he wants to focus on. So they happily invite Adrian into their line, and he instantly takes up the leader approach, and they tell him everything, that it's a fake engagement. And then Adrian, thank God for Adrian, because they would have been a fucking mess without him. He steps in and goes, fine, we are going to make this real. We are moving in with Bridget and we are going to court her like we really want to. And it was just wonderful. I loved getting, you know, Bridget to kind of realize and deconstruct her trauma and her belief about herself. And we get these moments with Jesse as this kind of babbling fool, and he doesn't really know what to say. He's always been attracted to Bridget, but he's not good with his words. So trying to see them figure out their relationship was beautiful. Darius loves to cook, but doesn't want the guys to take advantage of that, so will often cook or eat while everyone's asleep, and Bridget meets him in the kitchen. So they then end up having like these like midnight dates as they, you know, eat ice cream, and he cooks stuff for them, and he starts even cooking her lunch to bring to work, which is so sweet. And then we have Colt, who is struggling with the fact that he has injured his leg, I'm pretty sure, or an arm. It may be the end of his baseball career, and baseball is all he's ever been good at, and he doesn't know what to do. He's not taking his PT very seriously. He's not giving the opportunity because he's scared that if he goes the next steps and he's told he can't play, what is he going to do? He basically sits at home, reads all of Bridget's books, and she'll come home before Adrian, you know, Colt, Adrian, Jesse and Darius, and will just like tell him about her day, and he comes across as this grumpy arsehole. But I love that he remembers, and, you know, he asks like, oh, what about that annoying kid in period 3? Did he finally pull his head in? And it's just, yeah, this beautiful dynamic. And then Adrian does what he can to ensure that she and the rest of the pack have what they want. He's a big caretaker in that instance, and he tries to guess what the pack needs before they need it. And it was wonderful the way that we get towards the end, and Bridget's feeling good about herself, and then there's this panic that, you know, my heart was in my chest the entire time because they're at this function and then they're like, holy shit, Jesse's gone into a rut because he's scented his mate, and then she's like, well fuck, it's not me because we've been together, and the way that was all unwound was just beautiful. And I'm very excited to dive into the previous books in the series, because we do get in that event scene, we meet the girls and some of the pack members of the previous books. So safe to say I just absolutely devoured this. I think the way that Ari Wright is able to, you know, write these characters, we are able to see their development. And what I love about Why Choose, and she does it excellently, is that every character feels unique. Their dynamics and their relationships with Bridget develop in their own pace, in their own time, was just beautiful. So highly recommend if you're in the mood for an omegaverse sports romance, this one is definitely for you. I then picked up A Soul to Touch by Opal Rain, which is the third book in the Dustwalker Bride series, and I really miss this world. I listened to the audiobook because the size of these books intimidate me, which is so stupid to say because I fly through them and I love being immersed in this world. We are following Mayumi, who is a demon hunter. That's all she's ever wanted to do and all she's ever wanted to be. But she is discharged from the Demon Hunter Guild, and dealing with that rejection and the embarrassment of that, she's decided to isolate herself. And we find out the reason why she was rejected. It was kind of brutal, and what they would force female demon hunters to do in order to be safe. Like, logically I understand why that would be a necessity, but the fact that you are forcing people to make this decision which would impact their life and their choice was quite harrowing. So she isolates herself into this cabin in the woods, and she thinks it's the best place where she can still demon hunt and drink her life away. She is definitely different than the other female characters we've got in here. She is a drinker. She's, I guess, more masculine. You know, she is possibly an alcoholic, and she is hurt. So she hurts people. You know, she's not the most likable character in the world, but I was fascinated by her. And but one night when she's demon hunting, she surprises them by, you know, a different monster rocking up. And just before she unleashes an arrow that's aimed to kill, she pauses and she realizes that she has seen this cat-faced monster before when he saved her life when she was little. This is Faunus, who is our Duskwalker, and all he's ever wanted was her. So in the previous part of this book or series, the Demon King had cracked his skull, which is the only part of the Duskwalkers that don't regenerate. So Faunus is kind of terrified that this is it, this is the end of him, and he's seen Orpheus and nameless character in book 2 find their mates, and he's like, fuck, I want that. Like, I want that love and support. So he goes back to find Mayumi, who is someone he's been fascinated since he saved her all those years ago. And he doesn't really know what the future holds because he thinks he's dying. She can't be his bride. And Mayumi is definitely someone who is so used to being alone and isolated that she doesn't want a relationship. But I love the friendship that develops between them. The romance is so sweet, you know, I'm rambling at this point, but I really just loved these characters and loved this world. I know Opal Rain has said it before, her books are quite dark, but it's not necessarily a dark romance. Like, the romance itself is quite sweet. We watch them go to like weary allies to friends to lovers, and I just loved every second of it, and very excited to get to the next book in this series. I'm obsessed. And yeah, I think there's like 8 or 9 books out, so I really should binge them as much as possible. But I love these really long series that you can just come back to when you're in the mood to be back in that world. So highly recommend the Dustwalker Bride series if you're into a monster romance. We do get a lot of look into the demon hunters and the demons, which will push along the further plot. We do meet the twins, who are characters in books 5 and 6, I believe, and they were quite fun. So I'm enjoying meeting the other demon, the Dustwalker brides, and yeah, I will pick up the next one soon, I'm sure. Then I picked up Twist of Luck by Jaime and Eve. This is the second book in her Shifter City book. This world has omegas and alphas and betas, but it is not in the omegaverse sense like an Ari Wright, but is more like what you see in Werewolf Romance, like from Patricia Briggs. This one thankfully picks up right where the first book left off, because my god, that cliffhanger was a freaking nightmare. I was like, what? And Jaime and Eve does do an excellent cliffhanger, and I'm now just impatiently waiting for the next book. I think there's 4 books, so the third book's out. I probably will pick it up in October, but I don't know how I can do these cliffhanger endings. They're just driving me crazy. So we are following Emmeline, who is an Omega, and after watching her mother be essentially drained and killed by her pack of alphas, she doesn't want that life for her. She doesn't want anyone to have that control over her. So she's spent her life on the run, moving from city to city, staying to this human cities and keeping her head down. Unfortunately, she runs into an alpha and is rounded up and taken to the Golden City, which is the most prominent of the shifter cities. There she's on trial for being a rogue when Hunter, who is one of the top councilmen, comes in and realizes that she is his scent match mate. And his pack includes Finley, who is a bear shifter, Slade Riverson, who is a dragon shifter, and Kellyan, who is a very wonderful golden retriever type wolf shifter as well. So Finley and Kellyan are part of the hockey league in professional hockey players. Hunter himself is a councilman, runs a business, and Slade kind of runs a private eye security firm. And she wants nothing to do with them. She gets put with another pack just to be kept eye on, and she's just trying to find her way to escape, because this is a pack of all alphas, and it's almost like her nightmares are coming true. She doesn't want to tell anyone what happens because she doesn't want them to then exploit her. And the pack is a little bit annoyed at her for being so resistant, and everyone kind of has their own thoughts and feelings about it. As I said, book 1 ended up on a massive cliffhanger. So I can't tell you anything that happens in book 2, but just know that I ate this up. These books have crack in the pages. I'm obsessed with these characters. Finley is slowly coming around, and I will read anything Jaime and Eve writes, but I need to know what happens in the rest of the series, and preparing myself for the inevitable heartbreak I will get when I finish Claim of Fortune, which is book 3, which will end on what I'm assuming is another heartbreaking cliffhanger ending. And then I'll have to wait for book 4. But if you're in the mood for paranormal shifters, which has that, I guess, slight omegaverse, we've got a lot of politics, someone's after her, highly recommend picking this one up. I then binge read the entire Ironside Academy series by Jane Washington. So I reread Plie, Turner, and Satur before diving into Revelry, Glacier, and a Lancer. I'm aware that these are all French terms that deal with ballet, and I cannot speak French, so I probably said them horrifically wrong, but I couldn't put these books down. This is an omegaverse, like an alternate omegaverse, where we've kind of got these X-Men type people who've been rounded up into communities. They're seen as a threat to society, so they've been rounded up, kept on these reservations type lots, and are given limited resources in hopes of being able to, the overall society can control them. In America, they have created this TV show type, like reality TV show, Dance Academy meets something a lot brutaler, where they can exploit these people, and with the, dangling the carrot that if you win your year of Ironside, so it's a academy, like a university, you will be given the chance to lift from poverty. So Isabel is a Sigma, which is the lesser known designation. So in this world, we've got alphas, betas, deltas, omegas, and sigmas. So everyone has the ability to have a supernatural ability. All Sigmas have the same one, which is empathy, and they can draw emotions from people. It's considered to be like the weakest one because they're considered selfish, as they don't do it as regularly as people think they should. But what people don't know is that that does have horrific health consequences for the Sigma. So Isabel has been forced into going to the academy because her dad won his year, and it's almost like a gift that she's going to be a legacy child, and she's just going to keep her head down and get her way through. While there, she bumps into a pack of alphas, so it's very rare that this particular year 8 alphas have joined the villa. They have 2 alpha teachers, so that's right, this Why Choose includes 1 girl and 10 alphas. It was a lot to get my head around in the first instance, but they kind of form an alliance, and we see that the alphas have been planning this for a very long time because they're wanting to take down this organization who, under the glitz and glamour, have been trafficking and exploiting these people, and they want that to stop. And yeah, we get to see them, you know, play the game and try and manipulate their way and save their communities, and it's just super captivating. I read these back to back in like a week because each book ends on cliffhanger. I needed to know what happened and how they were going to, you know, escape, survive the game and change the world. So if you're in the mood for an dance academy, reality TV show type, supernatural, paranormal, omegaverse, highly recommend this series. It's all out now, so like me, you can binge to your heart's content. Then I picked up Just Joshing by Evie Mitchell. July was Disability Awareness Month, I'm pretty sure. So I wanted to pick up books that had endometriosis rep. I have adenomyosis, possibly endometriosis, but deal with chronic pelvic pain. So this is a little novella, one of her contemporaries. I love Evie Mitchell's contemporaries. They're so fun, and she always does include some diversity in terms of her characters. So this one we're following Molly. You know, she's always wanted to marry and have kids, but it's not until her best friend announces her engagement that she realizes that she's stuck a bit of a rut. She was engaged to someone, or she'd been in a long-term relationship to someone who ended up cheating on her and is now engaged and married to someone else. So she's kind of still dealing with that embarrassment of, you know, people in this town and the same circles like whispering behind her back. So she doesn't really want to date because of that, which is so understandable. So she recognizes the fact that she's in this bit of a rut, and she knows that if she does want to have a family, she's gonna have to get herself out of it. You know, like a man is not going to fall out of the sky onto her lap. She's got to, you know, make some moves. So she's got to shake off her blues and her hurt and her anger and all her fear about her past relationship and get back into the dating scene. Her only issue is Joshua Greenfield, who is her best friend's older brother, and Josh seems to be determined to kind of derail her plans. I think he saves her embarrassment from memory at an event and says that they're dating, and she kind of brushes it off. She's always been interested in Josh, and he thought, you know, he could never be interested in her, but Josh is willing to prove that he is interested in her, and we'll just have to make her see that he is the right person for her. It is short, steamy, still packs a lot of character development and a lot of heart, and I forever love Evie Mitchell for a little pick-me-up for a sweet, steamy romance. I then picked up Atonement Skies by Nalini Singh right around release day. So this is like the 25th plus book in the Psy Changeling series. This one, we are getting to see the Falcons, which is very exciting because they've been mentioned in earlier books as an ally to the Dark River and the Snow Dancer packs, but we haven't actually seen them out and about before. So we are following a J-Psy who are the Justice Psy. Their ability means that they can look into criminals' minds. So unsurprisingly, they have, you know, silence is broken and all that, but unsurprisingly that can put a big mental toll on them, and they are often end their lives early. So Alari Diaz knows it's nearly her end. She was particularly used in a lot of serial murder cases and quite violent crimes, so she's been in the heads of some very messed up people and she's just at the end of her rope. But she is basically one step away from having a psychic encounter that will just override her system and everything will shut down. But in the short time that remains, she has been on the hunt for a particularly bad serial killer. So that's basically her last hurrah. She's like, if I'm going to go down with, if I've only got one case left into me, I need it to be this serial killer case that's just been evading me. But that does mean that she ends up into the Falcon pack. Windhaven's, she's looking for this killer and it's kind of drawn her to this particular area. And we've got the Falcon wing leader, Adam Garrett, who is fiercely protective of his clan and his family. He lost his parents in a shocking act of violence, malice, when he was a teenager. So Adam has no forgiveness for Alaris because she was one of the JSI working the case, and he knows that her mentor lied about what happened and that the guy who claimed that he accidentally shot the falcons out of the sky was a lie. So he already is a bit dubious about her sniffing around trying to find the serial killer. But once he realizes that there is something evil stalking his territory, he will work with her and they will get a chance to work through their relationship. And I don't know what else to say. I love Nalini Singh. I loved getting a look at the Falcons because we haven't had a chance to look. This is the first book we've had about the Falcons, so seeing how different and similar they are to the other Changeling packs. This does take a bit of a step away from the overarching macro plot, as, you know, Alari being a JSI, it's not necessarily, her designation isn't going to help the net from slowly dying. But does give us an insight into some other characters we've met earlier on in the series. I will forever love every book in the series. It was wonderful. I love being back in this world, and I really enjoyed this second chance relationship with Adam and Alari. Don't know where we're going next, but I will pre-order it when it becomes available on audio, and will be impatiently waiting for the next installment of the series. I then picked up You As You Are by Emma Sewell, and I picked this one up because it also has endometriosis rep, and this was beautifully done. We're following Maisie Moss, who kind of isn't where she thought she'd be at 29. She's exchanging her life that she loves in London to move to a small town in Wales to watch after her grandmother, who's recently had a fall. The family are all pretty nervous that her grandmother's hiding secrets and her health is deteriorating. Maisie's the only one without like a real job or ties that they've decided that she's the one who's going to upend her life. She works as a graphic designer by trade, works from home, and owns her own bespoke jewelry business, so it seemed to be the most logical step that she would be the one to move across. But when she finds moving out, her social life stops. She's feeling really homesick. She feels like that feeling of not being where she's wanting or where she thought she'd be really gets exacerbated. But her grandmother seizes an opportunity to thrust her into their hiking group, where she meets Ian, who is a very gruff Welsh man, and they kind of form a beautifully tentative friendship and feelings develop. Ian is pretty insecure with the fact that he's not the smartest guy. His dad owned a farm in a different part of Wales and kicked him out because he didn't want to do that. He's in financial ruin after breaking off an engagement and realizing the woman he loved wasn't really interested in anything sincere or long term. But he's scared about taking anything further with Maisie because she's only here for a short term and her life is back in London. So I loved watching their relationship. He also has a dog who is so sweet, and it seems to be his life is to work at this job that he hates in sales and then come home and take care of his dog. And Maisie really shakes up her lifestyle. And then Maisie realizes that maybe it's not necessarily London that she missed, it's just the people. She's found a community in Wales and she's feeling more home and settled than ever before. She, as I said, has endometriosis, so we have a number of beautiful caretaking scenes, and I just loved being in this world with these characters in this tiny seaside town in Wales. And there is another book in this series, so I'm excited to read that one. But for my first read of Emma Sewell, very impressed and interested to read more from her. And then last but not least, I read First Time Caller by BK Borison. This is a Sleepless in Seattle retelling, I'm pretty sure. We're following Aiden Valentine, who is the host of a romance radio show, but he has lost interest or faith in love. The show is really stalling until a young girl calls the station asking for advice about her mother, Lucy. Lucy overhears her daughter talking to an old man, freaks out, starts ripping Aiden to shreds, and then they get chatting about a really honest chat about how Lucy herself is doing just fine, but she's wanting, you know, that magic and romance and spark, but dating's fine. You know, she's got a kid with her long-term best friend from high school who they were seeing each other. He's openly gay. His husband lives next door. She loves her job as a mechanic. Like, she has a really good sense of community and friends and love in her life, but she's just missing that spark of romance. So their segment on Heartstrings, the radio show, goes viral. So the radio show, you know, the station is loving the fact that they're now getting more views, asks Lucy to join the station, offer to, you know, try and find her the best date. And it's a win-win. The station will get more readership, like more listeningship and that kind of stuff, and Lucy will find the love of her life. And obviously it's a romance, so she falls in love with the grumpy Aiden Valentine. It was really fun. It was really sweet. I liked that we got to see the reasons behind why Aiden is feeling really disenchanted with love and why he's scared to commit to someone. His mother, trigger warning, his mother has gone through cancer treatment when he was younger and has been in and out of remission. And I think watching his dad lose himself and just that kind of feeling like there is a hammer hanging over your head, that if you give yourself wholly to someone and they die, you're like, there's that fear that you're never going to be the same again. So they butt heads a lot about that. Lucy's maybe feeling like, oh, maybe she should be more pragmatic, like she should settle, like she doesn't necessarily want to settle. She wants a relationship that's going to elevate her life and love. And, you know, she's co-parenting with her childhood best friend. The daughter is pretty funny. I did overall had a really good time with this. I would be interested to read her seasons series, which starts with Love Light Farm, which is a Christmas tree farm, and very excited for the sequel, which I'm sure is going to have the weatherman, who is so nerdy and adorable that I can't wait to read his story. One of my favorite books of June and July was Whisked Away by Alona M. Douglas. This is a fantasy romance omegaverse. So when I saw it, I had to instantly snap it up. And we're following Rhea, who is a princess of this small island nation, and she pretty much, I mean, she doesn't have a lot of freedom of being a princess, but she thought she was pretty safe. She's a beta. She was going to marry her childhood best friend, who is an ambassador, and get the chance to travel the world, but things take a abrupt turn when she late reveals as an omega, and all of a sudden her autonomy and her sense of self outside of this new designation that's been thrust on her is stripped away. Her parents are eager to get an alliance with a neighboring kingdom, and the best way to do that is through their omega daughter. And they invite a bunch of princes, lords, nobles, kings to their town to to take part in a trial, and whoever wins the trial will have the chance to marry Rhea. She's not particularly happy about that, and she feels really stuck that now she is an omega, that no one's going to see behind her designation. This is an MFM, so there's no sword crossing, but we have the two princes of Asdia, which is this island nation, Prince Callian and Prince Alaric, who happen to be in the area and are they love a challenge, so they jump into the chance of the trials, and when they see Rhea, they're instantly interested in her, so they give it their best shot and they win together. Rhea is intrigued by them, but she has this kind of deep-seated fear of, and I guess prejudice or stigma about what alphas and omegas are, and she's worried that they're just going to want to see her as a baby maker and that her sense of self is going to go. Even though she doesn't get that vibe from the princes, she's still worried about that. So she ends up wanting to reclaim her freedom. She plots her escape. She runs away with the boy she thought she was going to marry and realizes very quickly that he sees her as a paycheck and is willing to sell her off to an underground omega ring where she'll be sold off to the highest bidder. She manages to escape. She's hoping to find her way back to the princes of Asdia, knowing that if she goes back home, he's easily going to be able to find her. So she ends up road tripping, hiding with this colony of nomadic people as they make their way across the continent. The princes are instantly freaking out because they get this bad sense that yes, she might have made a choice, but they just want to make sure she's okay. So they end up finding her. They keep her identity secret, and while they're on the road, they're able to get to know each other and, you know, develop their relationship. We see that the interesting dynamic between the two, Alaric is the eldest prince, but because his brother Callian is like he's like a super alpha, he's now considered the second in line, and his title even translates to like lesser prince. So he's had a lot of animosity towards his younger brother growing up, in particular fed by his mother, who lost her power and station as like the king's head concubine. And there is a moment where he had the chance to get rid of his brother, but he doesn't. But it's something that he had thought about, and he carries a lot of guilt, so he will willingly sacrifice and do anything for his brother. And Callian is also aware that there is a imbalance between their dynamic, and he knew that his brother felt this way, but he is just unwavering in his support and love for his brother. He has a lot of pressure being this new king, and he doesn't necessarily want to be stuck in an office trying to run a country. He wants to explore the world and see every sight and sound and, you know, live his life before he's chained to that. Meeting Rhea, he kind of realizes that he wants to be taken seriously. This book has some of the best world building I have ever read in any fantasy book ever. Like, I feel pretty confident that I could ask Alona what the tax system is in Asdia and what their main import is to, you know, Athonia, and she would be able to tell me. You can see the cultural differences between Rhea's kingdom and, you know, compared to the Asdaria and then the nomadic group. Like, it just feels like such a well-developed world, and it's done in a way that's so seamless. There's no info dumping. We just get that from conversations we have with the characters about their cultures and their religious beliefs and what they're trading, and honestly, it is flawless. If you are a big lover of fantasy romance and want to get into Omegaverse, I think this is fantastic. We don't have knots. There is a heat scene. It's not as in your face with the Omegaverse as a typical Omegaverse. And I think if you're an Omegaverse lover who's wanting to get into fantasy romance, this is pure perfection. This is a massive book, but I flew through it. I loved these characters. I loved watching them kind of underpin or deal with the trauma or insecurities and vulnerabilities they have and give themselves over to being in a relationship, and it was absolutely fantastic. That is the however many books I read in June and July. Comment down below and let me know what your favorite read of June and or July was. I would love to know. Or you could leave me a ballet shoe, I'm pretty sure, or a dance emoji for the Ironside Academy. If you'd like to see more content from me, please like and subscribe. I'll be attempting to post new videos every Sunday, pending life stuff. Linked in the description box below will be all these books, reviews if they have them, and links to my social media channels if you'd like to talk to me or follow me on any other corner of the internet. Anyway, that's all for me today, guys. I hope you're doing all kinds of well, and I'll speak to you soon. See ya!